Hey, what's up, everybody? What's going on? Hope everybody had a great weekend. Yes, I know I did. It was a fun weekend, but yeah, welcome to the E.A.F.P podcast here. You're live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. I am live here in this very undisclosed, part of my basement. I'm just kidding. Very undisclosed place here, but I'm here to do the podcast here to help you guys out and have another show for you guys today. We're going to talk about the quarterfinals that happened today, and the matchups that are going to happen after tomorrow too as well. Who's going to face off, and then the quarterfinal matchups. We'll break it down Thursday when the quarterfinals start Friday, and then have the shows after that too as well. Guys, make sure you follow the John Konabi and also the Star 6 Media Facebook pages, and make sure you guys follow us. Hit the little bell to get notified when all our episodes are live, not just my episode, the E.A.F.P podcast, but also Big League Chicago. It comes up tonight at 8:00. What else? Why am I forgetting the name? Sports Strip Live, JCA Sports Podcast, Slapshot, Big League Chicago, 3 Up, 3 Down, and many more other podcasts too as well that we have here on our social media platform. Make sure you guys follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, all of that too as well. The link will be provided right here for you guys on the comment section, just for you guys to join me to talk about the World Cup. And there's nothing else to talk about other than the World Cup that has been going on for the past month, and it's been an exciting World Cup today too as well. Posted up on the Facebook comment page too once I get there. But yeah, like always, guys, you can always join me. We talk about the World Cup and everything else good to go. So let's start off with the game today. I just made a little thing. Let's start off with today's show. Let's start off with today's game. The first one. The first game they played. Let's go. Yes. Where are we? Where are my brains? Here we go. First game today was Japan versus Croatia. It was a very exciting game too as well. It was. It took a while to get there. It took. I guess an attacking force from Japan for it to start it all off. As you can see, Days Maneda with the 43rd minute on a good play too, set up too. Good cross coming in, and it was just mumble jumble all over the place before they put it in the back of the net. But a good goal from Japan, who were actually the darlings of the World Cup. They were top of the group. In the group they had Spain, Germany, and Costa Rica. They top off group. They played against Croatia. And this was the game where everybody thought that maybe Japan might have enough to get over the hump and finally make it outside the round of 16. And this team, everybody just enjoyed watching the game. I think what they did in the first game against Germany, winning 2-1 after coming back 1-0, and beating Spain the last game, losing to Costa Rica the way that they did, but beating Spain in the second game just to get the first place bid. Everybody was just excited to watch this team, and hopefully this team take the next step. It was a favorable matchup against Croatia simply because of what Croatia has been coming in, right? 4 years older, being the runner-ups in the World Cup in 2018. Can this team have enough to take it over to the next step, take it to the next step? And a team that was tactically sound and tactically can put Croatia to the edge, which they did with their tactics. They played defensively very, very well. They were trying to surprise them on times like counters, and even their attacking, even their build-up play was even good too as well. They just couldn't find to put it in the back of the net as well, and it was just. It was kind of disappointing to see him go. I mean, the Croatia goal was great from Ivan Perisic. Set it from a set piece, cross coming in, great header down low, being the goalkeeper to his bottom left. And even then, the build up to the game was kind of slow after that. I mean, there was a few techy moments here and there. Extra time didn't really provide that much. I know Japan was only going all out with the last 10 minutes. I think Japan kind of could show more of extra time than Croatia did. Croatia, I think they knew that they were going to go into PKs, and they were okay with that, and it showed too. I think Japan had some very poor penalty takes. The first, the second, or the first two was poorly taken. Even though the second one, the goalie had to do a little bit of reach for that one, but it was just softly hit. I know the Minaminos one was very, very softly hit to the goalie's left. And even the third save too as well. Like they were just very poor take. Even their goal was kind of poorly taken, right in my eyes. They just put it into the other side with the goalie dove, and yeah, you could just tell that that Croatia was there mentally more prepared for the PKs than Japan was, and they built under pressure, and now Croatia takes the next step, heading into the World Cup quarterfinals. And who will they face? Well, they're going to face against the winners of the second game between Brazil and South Korea, and it was over even when before even the game started. To be honest, Brazil healthy 4-1 lead, 4-0 lead at halftime, convincingly winning 4-1. They could have put a lot more in the back of the net. The goalie for South Korea had an amazing 2 or 3 saves in this game too as well for it not to go out of hand. And yeah, Neymar 1 goal away from tying Pelé for the most goals in Brazil's history. Excuse me. Vinicius Jr. got on the score first in the 7th minute. Neymar in the 13th. Lucas Paqueta's goal was good, and also Richarlison had another one too a few minutes before that. Brazil just looked comfortable. You just see the same Brazilian flair that they always carried, throughout the whole entire World Cup, and what we know in Brazil for many years, even before I was born, and now to present day and in the past. That the Brazilian flair was there, and you could just tell that it was on the pitch tonight or earlier in this afternoon. The game was won even before it even started. Brazil just looked dominant from the start, and actually one of the most complete teams. And now the quarterfinal matchups. I mean, you could choose any teams, and we're going to get into it more on Thursday in the pre-show before the quarterfinals, and also at the same time we are going to and every matchup after that too as well. We're going to preview it, and every team that's in here, I mean, it's basically the same old people, the same old teams that are there week in and week out. I mean, World Cup in, World Cup out, week in, week out, but every World Cup, and you want to have something different, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's the teams that are always there, that have been there, done it. And I know Croatia is one of the newcomers in here since them being in the World Cup, but they've also, they were runner-ups in 2018 for a reason, right? And they're back at it again in the quarterfinals, and we're gonna see them once again playing against Brazil in a matchup where I feel like this is where Croatia feels to me a little bit outmatched what Brazil has, and if they're fighting on all cylinders, it's gonna be a long day for Croatia. I mean, don't get us wrong, they like to start off slow. They do start off slow. And that's how most of the game started, even in their group stage. When you think that they're out in this game, in reality they're not. In reality, they find a way to come back in. They creeped in this game. They creeped into this game against Japan. They got the goal that they needed. They got the goal that they got, and now and that's why they're advancing, because they know how to do that. After a poor performance in 2014, 2018, you didn't see them. They were the darlings of the World Cup in 2018. People wanted them. They got to where they got. But they got up against an offensive juggernaut and a great team in France, and it was shown in that game. You guys watching and listening to the E.A.F.P podcast here on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, under the John Guanavi Facebook page, and also the Star 6 Media page. Make sure you guys follow us on all our social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, all that for the Star 6 Media brand, and also the John Guanavi brand. Guys, just make sure you hit the little bell next to each page, just to get notified when all our shows are going to be live. Not just my show, but the John Guanavi, the JCA Sports Podcast, Sports Ship Live, Big League Chicago that comes out tonight at 8:00, and also other podcasts too as well. So again, just stay tuned and just find us on every social media platform. So that was those are the quarterfinals for today. It sucks now, instead of having 4 games either playing at the same time or 4 games in one day, now we're just down to 2, and then starting with the quarterfinals this weekend, it's only going to be 1 a day. So our World Cup games are slowly but surely coming towards an end. It's been an exciting World Cup. I can't lie about that. There's been a lot of upsets. There's been a lot of disparity going on. I think this is the first World Cup where I think I read somewhere the first World Cup and where neither group won all, like neither team in each group won all their games, and that's the first time, and that's pretty rare for it to happen because there's always this one team that always goes undefeated, that always wins all 3 games, and just been the clear-cut favorites. But now you can kind of see that the global game has been growing, not just throughout the world. Who would have thought that Japan today, who would have thought that they would come out first in that group where they had Spain, Costa Rica, and Germany? Nobody thought. I think there was a time where in that group, all of them had a taste of advancing into the next World Cup and being eliminated at the same time. So that's what we like to see in most of the World Cups, and obviously a lot of heartbreaks and a lot of disappointment, which is a great segue because I do have my top 5 disappointing teams in the World Cup this year. And it wasn't as hard to pick out the top worst teams, the top 5 worst teams in this World Cup. I think it was pretty easy and pretty self-explanatory on which teams were the most disappointing teams in this World Cup. But there's one that's in there that's kind of, it shouldn't be surprising, but I put it up there because of how disappointing they were. But let's get into it. Let's go start off with number 5. Top 5 disappointing teams in this World Cup for 2022. Qatar, the host nation. They were just a step and a half, maybe even 2 steps behind in each and every game. Yes, I think they had 2 goals total, if I'm not mistaken, in the World Cup, this upcoming World Cup. But the worst host nation or host nation to represent in a World Cup, South Africa. They got a point. Tell Mexico about that. They got a point in their World Cup. They at least got something out of it. Qatar is the only team that did not get a single point and was the second team that didn't qualify outside of the group stage next to South Africa. This is the worst performance of a host nation in World Cup history. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on and on and on and on about why Qatar was the most disappointing team, but they're number 5 by default. I mean, it could have been higher, but if it wasn't for the other teams that I'm about to put up here, but they definitely deserve to be here. Had no business being in the competition, and it was just a very, very somber and blah performance from Qatar in this World Cup. So by far, as of right now, in the history of the World Cup, they had been the most disappointing host as a nation in the World Cup. And number 4, I got Denmark. Denmark is here, number 4. In a group where even though they had France, but Australia and who else did they have in this group? Tunisia. This group was made for them to come out second. Now, look, I get it. Yes, you had France, but second place was there for the taking in this group, and in a group that wasn't really that complicated for Denmark. The only difficulty that they had is against France, but a poor performance against Tunisia and another poor performance against Australia, where they got themselves eliminated from this tournament. It was just, to say the least, Denmark were the darlings back in 2020 for the Euros. Very disappointing in this tournament. So it was losing 1-0 to Australia, tying Tunisia 0-0, and then obviously they had a good game against France, but France was just too much in this one, which was going to be the game that was going to be complicated. Bouncing out in the last game of the group, and coming in last in the group too as well. And what was supposed to be the darlings of this World Cup, or the darlings of 2020 for the Euros. This tournament provided that Denmark, it wasn't the same team as it was 2-3 years ago. And they were disappointing. There was no attacking force going on top. Lackluster play in the midfield. Defensively, as tight as they were even against Tunisia, like they just couldn't provide any other help outside of that too as well. So it was kind of like we expected more from this team, I guess, before when we saw the semifinalists in the Euros, but it just never came into fruition for them. And now they're the number 4. To me, they're the 4th disappointing team in this World Cup. Again, I could have put Qatar at number 4 for the reasons where I explained myself, but I think for the team like Denmark and for the quality players that they had, they're a step above Qatar in that reason, no matter what. So it was a very disappointing World Cup for Denmark for sure. Only getting a point in this group, and a group that was very very again, they had France, but in a group that it was very passable to get out of this group. Australia came into second, and it could have been a lot better for Denmark. So Denmark, to me, the fourth worst team in this World Cup. Number 3 is CONCACAF. It's plain and simple. 3 out of the 4 teams that represent CONCACAF got bounced in the group stages: Mexico, Costa Rica, and Canada. Canada losing all 3 games. Mexico did whatever they needed to do to put themselves in it, but unfortunately, it wasn't enough. And Costa Rica, even though they were the team that battled their way through into it. Again, every team in that group. In the group, they had Spain, Germany, and Japan. They got trounced 7-0 against Spain. They got a point. They got 3 points against. They got 3 points against Japan, tops of that group. And Germany, even though they played a good game, down 1-0, up to 1. Germany was Germany. Ooh, never. I took that one. Germany was Germany. And turn the hand on this game how it's supposed to be and take them off like that. Costa Rica again was out of this group. Mexico again in the group that they should have been at least second. Even probably compete for the first one, but definitely for second for sure. Poor performance against Poland, even though they dominated that game, couldn't find a ball in the back of the net. A super poor performance against Argentina. That they just, I don't know what the tactics were. I don't understand what the hell was going on. Nobody knew what they were doing, playing with a line of 5, which never worked for Tata Martino. It was a do or die game against Poland. Against Saudi Arabia in that group. They did what they did. They got the 3 points. They got one with the goal differential, right? Winning 2-1, -1. Still couldn't get over the hump either. And them just not performing in the first game against Poland was everything. They got a point. But the results afterwards was just not enough for Mexico to advance into the round of 16, and for the first time since 1978 they haven't advanced outside the group. So Mexico was very disappointing in this World Cup too as well. And Canada, like I said, no, they first time in the World Cup, and it showed. It showed that there was the first time in the World Cup they didn't. Alphonso Davies missed a penalty. They had opportunities. Let's be honest. They had opportunities. They could find a way. Stage was too big for them for being the first time there in the World Cup in quite a while. I forgot how long it was. It wasn't their first time in history, but in quite a while. So this team, who was the number 1 team in CONCACAF and represented CONCACAF, was one of the favorites, at least to come out of the group. Very disappointing coming out of the group. And the only team that came out of the group stage was the United States men's national team. But to me, in my eyes, they came out subpar performance. The only good performance they had was against England. They could have done more, but they didn't. They only scored 2 goals in the group stage. A 1-1 draw against Wales and a 1-0 win against who do they have in that group? Wales. What am I forgetting? Wales, England, and Iran. Getting 1-0 victory for them in that one to advance second in the group against England, and they had a date in destiny against Netherlands around 16. For a lot of people, especially the people that I talked to, that thought that the United States men's national team had a chance against Netherlands, I said no. Lackluster performances against in their group. Lackluster performances coming into this World Cup, especially the warm-up matches before the World Cup. This United States men's national team disappointed, and they were outplayed, outmatched, outcoached in the round of 16 against the Netherlands, and it showed. Even the goal was fluky, right? Let's be honest, the goal was even fluky for their only goal to sort of kind of make it interesting. But you've seen that Netherlands just went on another, just flipped the switch and automatically got the third goal to put this game into bed, put the game to bed. And like I said, too much team, but again, it was a representation of CONCACAF as a whole for the teams that came into this World Cup on how poorly these teams were coming in. Outside of Canada, who dominated CONCACAF, But you can tell during the world stage that they were up for it. And the two so-called giants in USA and Mexico came into this World Cup playing at their worst. A lot of people had different aspects, this and that. Yes, you give me the positives, but what I saw with my own two eyes were two teams that barely made it in crawling. They were second and third for a reason, and in the qualifying stages in the World Cup, there were the reasons why they struggled coming into this World Cup. I mean, they both scored the same amount of goals in they both scored the same amount of goals in group stages, 2 goals each, and it shows and it proved that this the two giants of CONCACAF weren't ready for this. And Costa Rica, who were the darlings in 2010, 2014, and then obviously did whatever they did in 2018. Their time came from an end. They're not up there like the United States men's national team in Mexico, but they at least represented the fight and what is CONCACAF, at least in the group stages. Even though they got Spain 7-0 against Spain, the other two games against Germany for quite a bit before Germany turned their head on them, and obviously the game against Spain, you could tell that they had opportunities and it just wasn't enough, especially in that group where you just had to be on point, as you could tell. But yeah, CONCACAF as a whole, very disappointing World Cup. I could have put them higher in this group, but two other teams to me, these next two teams that are number one and number two, are the reasons why I didn't put them up higher for that apparent reason. But yeah, the United States men's national team, very disappointing World Cup, even though they made it to round 16, but disappointing performance. Mexico, disappointing performance in the World Cup in the group stages. That's why they didn't make it out of the group. Canada couldn't even put in a toe in and just didn't look like the stage was big for them. And Costa Rica did what they could in that group and fought to the very end until talent wise took over. So those are my top five. Those are so far my three. My bottom three. Number two is Belgium. Belgium, to me, even though I said in this World Cup, Belgium was overrated, right? Belgium was an overrated team coming into this World Cup. They were ranked too high, and it showed every single game that they had in this group. Every single game, they just looked slow and lackluster. In a group that was pretty winnable. Let's be honest. They had Croatia, who right now is in the quarterfinals, right? But now Morocco, who plays tomorrow, and they also had Canada. And they got the point against they got the point against oh my god, they got the points against Canada, right? That's the only points that they got. But a lackluster performance against Croatia, and I don't know what I saw against them in the I still don't know what I saw against them against Morocco's. It just again, a very overrated team. They only had a starting 11, and even then the starting 11 looked slow. This team just looked slow. The subs didn't look right. Roberto Martinez, who did an amazing job, tried to do an amazing job to keep this team back in 2018 in the Euros. This team just never had it together, and that was the most disappointing part of it all, right? That was the very disappointing about it all, that they just couldn't find a way to put it together. And the result of a 0-0 draw against Croatia, a 1-0 victory against Canada, and against Morocco, like it just, I don't know. I don't know what you got, but I called it, and I don't know what to think about it. Like you know what I mean? Like I don't know what they got. They lost 2-0 against Morocco, and I just don't know what went wrong with Belgium with the talent they had. I mean, you see Kevin De Bruyne every week in Manchester City. Like I'm struggling to find words about this Belgium team, because on paper they probably not the most talented team in there, but put together, they weren't just good enough. They weren't good enough. They weren't. Like I said, a very disappointing team World Cup finish. Luckily, they had Canada in the group. If not, they would have finished last. But yeah, in a group that was there for the taking for them, they should have came out first in this group. They should have came out, or at least the worst second in this group for them having the run-ups to the World Cup 2018. This team just didn't turn up. They did not turn up, and it showed. It showed. Now the worst team, like let me go back from 5. I had Qatar at 5, Denmark at 4, CONCACAF as a whole, United States, Mexico, Costa Rica, and also Canada, Belgium at 2. I thought about long and hard about these two teams and what team was like the most disappointing, right? And you can make a case, you can make an argument for both teams, but Germany very disappointing in this World Cup. It started from the first game, going up 1-0 against Japan, and then losing 2-1, right? It was a great matchup against Spain in their tie against them in their group stage. I think it was a 1-1, 2-2 draw. I don't recall. I think it was a 2-2 draw or 1-1. I don't remember the score. I don't know why for the life of me I can't remember the score between Spain and Japan. I think it was 1-1. 1-1. Spain and Germany, sorry, not Spain and Japan. It was 1-1. 1-1 draw. It was a very tactical, great game between both teams. Two teams that have been there, done that. But also at the same time, you kind of saw the moment where the two teams that were coming in transition of their previous regime. And they're both previous regime, previous players, previous, generation. Both of them ended up coming to World Cup. We talk about, the winners of the last 2 out of the last 3 World Cups in Spain 2010, 2014, and Germany. You just seen the transition of youth and the mixture of old and youth, right? Busquets, who was there in 2010, was there in 2010, was the linchpin of this taking care of this young group in Spain, right? You had Thomas Muller, you still had Manuel Neuer. Who else was in this Germany squad? I'm trying to think on top of my head that won it back in 2014. But again, same thing. Players that won it back in 2014 that are still in this team, still in the squad right now with these young players. But Germany just couldn't find a way. Germany just couldn't find a way. They won 4-2 against Costa Rica, right? They tied 1-1 against Spain, but that loss against Japan 2-1 after leading 1-0 was just a bummer. And at times, Germany just looked like they just couldn't find that switch to flip in order for them to, to take it to the next level, to win and to trying to take over, right? I don't know if they had it in them with the squad that they had. I don't know what the case might have been, but the fact of the matter is that that they came out, in third place in this group, just said it all, and it just the transition period is really stunning. I mean, and especially in the last World Cup where they, were the defending champs and they got out of the group and they lost and they didn't even get out of the group stage. This is back-to-back This is back-to-back tournaments. Germany did not qualify outside of the group stages. I mean, in the last group they had Sweden, Mexico, and South Korea, and they ended up losing against Mexico 1-0. They ended up losing, I think it was 2-1 or 2-0 against South Korea in the last game, and they got their 3 points against Sweden off of Tony Kroos' free kick. But that still wasn't enough for them, and the case may be for this one that the Germans just are in a weird position. Hopefully, in the next 4 years, or within the next 2 years, they'll find their way with this now new generation of players. But at the same time, it's just like right now, this team just had the right amount of youth and experience to take them over to the next level and at least qualify into a quarterfinal stage at the very, very least. But to come out of the group stage with the squad they have, because they have talented players. Let's be honest here. They have talented players, but for them not to come out of the group stage is very disappointing. So yeah, my top 5 disappointing teams. At 5 I have Qatar, 4 I have Denmark. CONCACAF as a region as a whole is number 3, Belgium at 2, and Germany at number 1 as my top 5 disappointing teams in the 2022 World Cup. There's one more round of 16 matchups tomorrow. Morocco. What are the matchups? Let me get my phone real quick because I don't know on top of my head who is going to play mañana. I know Spain, Morocco, Portugal. I think Portugal, Morocco, Spain, and That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one. And Switzerland. Ooh, that Switzerland-Portugal game should be a good one tomorrow. That's the game I'm gonna keep my eye on. Morocco, I just want to see how they react in the first round of 16 matchup against Spain. Again, like I said, a team that's in transition, a team that's very young in this tournament. But playing very well. Luis Enrique, you can't deny he's doing a good job with this young squad. And we'll see what Morocco team comes tomorrow. If this stage is going to be too big for them, that's a 9:00 matchup, and also Portugal versus Switzerland. Ooh, that one's a tough one. Switzerland is a very good defensive team. They're a very good unit together, play together. They have the right amount of attacking players to go forward and to disrupt everything. Easy breakdown, not too easy to break down, should I say? So that match is going to be a good one. Again, the winners of that games will face each other in the quarterfinals. So it should be interesting. Same time, same place tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you follow us on the John Conavi Facebook page and also on the Star 6 Media Facebook page. Just make sure you guys follow us on all our social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and TikTok. Guys, make sure you hit the little bell to get notified not only when my episode is going online, but also Big League Chicago that's on tonight at 8:00 in 1 hour. Also 3 Up, 3 Down, the JCA Sports Podcast, and many other more podcasts that we have on our platform here for you guys. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for tuning in. I will see you guys tomorrow, same time, same place, to break down the final matchups of the round of 16 before we get into the quarterfinals. I'll see you guys tomorrow. You guys have a good night. And if you guys want to watch me again, I will be on at 6. About 57 minutes. I'll be back out. So I'll see you guys then. Thank you guys for coming. See you guys tomorrow.
Scrooge smile with the quality of his goal.
See you later.
Oh. Yes. Yes.
He's intolerable.